This video demonstrates the method for converting between mixed numbers and improper fractions. For example, 2 3/4 is a mixed number. So suppose that we want to convert it into the form of an improper fraction. Keep in mind that when we do this, we aren't actually calculating anything, but rather just rewriting the number in a different format. You can think of it as sort of translating the number into a different language. It's going to look different, but will have the same value. Anyway, before we proceed, I think it is going to be useful to see a visual representation of 2 3/4. So check it out. Do you see why it's called a mixed number? There are two whole circles, that's the whole part, and there's also a fractional part, 3/4. If we were to read this diagram as we would a sentence, we might say something like a whole plus 3/4. And that of course would equal 2 3/4. Well, that's correct, but the problem is that we still can't make sense of this in terms of a single fraction because of the fact that we are trying to add up pieces of different sizes. So, I'm going to do something different here just to illustrate a little more clearly what I'm talking about. All I did was divide each of the whole circles into 4 parts. And remember, anything divided by itself is equal to 1. So now, instead of seeing them as a whole, you could also look at each of them as simply being equal to 4 over 4. Can you see how a mixed number is really just like an addition problem? Anyway, we're going to count how many fourths we have because that's going to help us figure out how to write this as an improper fraction. The first circle contains 4 fourths, adding the second circle makes 8 fourths, and finally, adding the last 3 fourths brings the total to 11 fourths. So that's the answer. 2 3/4 converted into improper fraction form equals 11 fourths. However, that's not the end of the story. Obviously, you don't want to have to draw a whole picture like this every time you want to convert a mixed number into an improper fraction. So there's actually a shortcut method that you can use to make this conversion quickly. So let's just forget about these diagrams for a minute and look at the numbers themselves. Alright, we're back where we started. But this time, I'm going to redo this problem and I'm going to rewrite it as an improper fraction without using any diagrams. So, I think that if I just demonstrate it, it's going to be the simplest way to get the point across. The first thing I'm going to do is to take the denominator of the fractional part, in this case 4, and the whole number, in this case 2, and multiply them together, like this. 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, that's great. But what's the next step? Well, now you're going to take that product, 8, which you just found, and actually add it to the numerator of the fractional part, in this case 3. Watch while I demonstrate. 8 plus 3 is 11. And actually, that shouldn't really be surprising to us because do you remember when we counted how many fourths there were when we solved this thing graphically? Here's a hint. There were 11. 11 what? 11 fourths, because 4 was the original denominator. It's the denominator of the fractional part of the mixed number. So, the final step is to simply take 11 and divide it by 4. Does that make sense? Let me see if I can sum it up concisely now that you hopefully have a general understanding of what's going on. Ready? To convert a mixed number to an improper fraction, first, take the denominator and multiply it with the whole number. Then, take that product and add it to the numerator. Finally, take that sum and put it over the denominator. Got it? If not, that's okay. You'll get the hang of it once you try it a couple times. Alright, where are we at now? I just showed you how to convert from a mixed number to an improper fraction. But what about the other way around? How do you convert from an improper fraction to a mixed number? It's actually quite easy in comparison, but for the sake of simplicity, let's just stick with the same example and use 11 fourths, since we already know what the outcome is going to be. Ready for this? To convert an improper fraction into a mixed number, we first need to ask ourselves 2 questions. The first question is, how many times does the denominator go into the numerator evenly? And the second question is, what will be the remainder? Let's just go ahead and carry out the division. Well, that was easy. 2 remainder 3, because 4 times 2 is 8, and 11 minus 8 equals 3. So that's the first step. The second step is even easier. All we're going to do is make the number of times that it went in evenly the whole part of our mixed number, while Much in the same way as before, we simply put the remainder over the original denominator to form the fractional part of our mixed number, like this. Well, look at that. We're back where we started.